Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Kinzer, and I work for an organization called Eden Reforestation Projects as the Africa Area Co-Director. Our mission at Eden falls under two main categories: poverty alleviation and forest restoration. We don't focus on poverty alleviation because we believe that poor people are the primary drivers of deforestation and degradation. But we focus on poverty alleviation because of the reality that poor people are more heavily and directly impacted by environmental degradation and natural disasters. And they often don't have the necessary resources to be resilient to these disasters and the related economic shocks. Um, Eden is a reforestation organization, and if we're doing our jobs, eventually we'll work ourselves out of a job. However, that's not likely, as it takes a lot less time to cut down a forest than it does to restore it. But all the same, our goal is not to keep people working for Eden forever. Our basic model is that we employ as many people as possible to plant and raise as many trees as possible. Through our nurseries, planting teams, long-term monitoring teams, etc. We offer long-term cash income opportunities to communities that often don't have cash income job options. In our projects all around the world, we have seen how these opportunities have allowed people to save, have allowed people to invest, leave Eden, create their own jobs, and become employers in their own communities. The bulk of the work that we do is traditional pure forest restoration. We work in terrestrial and mangrove forests all around the world that have been degraded or completely destroyed. However, we are working towards incorporating more agroforestry projects into every single planting project that we do. Because of the scale and the complex nature of the challenges facing the earth right now, we have to work at a landscape scale. Our reforestation work is more than just tree planting. We view our work as working to kind of create connected and resilient landscapes and communities. And agroforestry is a key part of that model. This diagram is an illustration of the type of projects that we work towards. You can think of indigenous forest restoration as the core or heart of our work. In those areas, we're focusing on, as I mentioned before, just restoring and protecting indigenous forest. Moving out from there, we try to establish densely planted buffers of non-timber agroforestry species. So things that can be used for biofuel, for fruit, for berries, medicinally valuable species, things like that. Basically species that have non-consumptive use value. You don't have to harvest the entire tree in order for you to be able to use it. Our next ring, moving out from there, is focused on agroforestry plantation species that are meant to be harvested through time. So harvested for species or by communities that need to use, timber or firewood or charcoal production, things like that. And then our last ring is where we work with our, what you would think of as your traditional smallholder farmer or smallholder agriculture, where we work with communities to plant crop producing trees like, mangoes or cashews or papaya or whatever is going to work in that area, establishing tree-based windbreaks, creating pollinator habitat, etc. And when establishing agroforestry projects in the areas where we work closely with the communities in these areas to decide what species are most valuable, what species are most used and needed, and then we focus on trying on incorporating those and prioritizing those species. So now agricultural systems, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And they are part of complex landscape mosaics. Sustainable agricultural systems embrace the fact that they're part of that mosaic, recognizing that there's an interdependence and that there's influence between communities and their environment. And it creates patterns in the landscape that enhance ecological connectivity, enforce the values of indigenous forests, and maintain the ecosystems to function, the ecosystem's ability to function across large scales. And that's kind of represented by these arrows. Our hope is that in addition to the employment opportunities, restored ecosystems, and the ecosystem services that they provide, we're also building long-term resilience in our project areas by creating these multi-use landscapes that'll continue to provide for people's needs long after Eden is done with our work. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about Eden and the work that we do.